In PySpark, you can group your data into subsets and perform aggregation functions on those subsets. This allows you to compute summary statistics like sums, counts, averages, or other metrics across subsets of a data frame. This is similar to the SQL group by operation. You first use the group by method directly on your data frame. So the group by method is a part of the data frame class. So if I just do Control F and search for group by, you can see here it is. So group by is a method in the data frame class. You provide a list or column strings as parameters, and then it returns a grouped data object. It's this grouped data object that allows you to run aggregations on it. So going back, we can also head to functions. So here are functions, and then if we go to aggregation functions, so aggregate functions, we can see all of the aggregate functions we can apply on the grouped data object. So some of these will be familiar, such as average. You've got count, you've got first, mean, which is also the same as average, median, min, and so on. And you should also see sum as well, which is an important one. So these should already be familiar to you. So let's go through some examples where we'll group and aggregate our data frame. So I'm in my Databricks notebook and I've created a data frame containing countries information. So this is different in that it's got an additional column called sub-region. So here's the data for it. So it contains a country name, the continent, but also the sub-region column, and then the population and the area in kilometers squared. And then I've displayed the first 5 rows here. So let me turn this data frame into a grouped data object, where it's grouped by the continent column. So I'll create a new code cell, and then I can type df.group by, and then specify the column I'd like to do the grouping on. So if I actually just do type, we can output the type of this object. And if I run this, you can see it's a grouped data object. So we can run aggregations on this object. So let's say I wanted to get the sum of the population for each continent. Well, then I can run a sum aggregation on it. But first I need to import the sum function. So from PySpark.sql.functions, import sum. So let's run this cell. And then I can do df.group by continent, and then I can do .sum, and then specify the column I'd like to sum. So that's population. And then I can do a .display. So let's run this. So what we have here is the sum of the total population of each continent. What if I also wanted the average population? Well, we can use the average aggregation. So let me import AVG. So note we could also do mean, it's the same. So I'll just do AVG. And that's imported. So I'll try to do something and it won't work, and I'll explain why. So if I do df.group by continent and then do .sum of the population, and then let's say I also want the average, well then this won't work. So the reason this won't work is because we're trying to apply an average aggregation on a data frame, whereas we need to apply it on a grouped data object. So this fails. See, the attribute average is not supported on the data frame. So in this scenario, we want to apply multiple different aggregations on the grouped data object. So to do that, we need to use the agg method. So what we do is df.group by, so we create our group data object, and then we do .agg. And then I'll just do this across multiple lines. And then what we do is we specify multiple aggregations. So if I want the sum of the population, I can type that, and then I do a comma, and then another aggregation, so AVG of the population as well. And then I will do .display. So note, if I wanted to format this like this, I could as well, so it's all kind of indented in the same line. So let's do this. And this works. So now we have multiple aggregations on the same grouped data object. And what's good about this is you can also alias these columns. So right now, it's just the expression. So that's the sum of the population and the average population. So if I wanted to give it a meaningful name, I can do .alias, and I'll just say total population. And then in this example, I'll do .alias AVG population, like so. And that's worked, as you can see. And similarly, if I wanted to add the area in kilometers squared of each continent, then I could as well. So then I can do the sum of the area in kilometers squared dot alias as total area km squared. So let's run this. And that's also worked. So when you want to perform multiple aggregations, use this agg method and provide each aggregation as an argument. So right now we've grouped by the continent column. We can also group by multiple columns simply by adding them in this group by method. So let me group by the continent and the subregion. So I can do df.group by, and then I want to group by continent and subregion. So we don't need to pass it in square brackets, but if we do, it's not a problem. So we can pass it in as a list if we want as well, and that should be fine. And then I will do a sum of the population dot display. So this works. So now for each combination of continent and subregion, we have got the total population. Great. So that was how to group and aggregate your data frames using PySpark.